The prevailing macro environment and changing palladium market conditions have prompted a strategic revision of the US PGM operations and our previous expansion plans. It's prudent to defer capital investment on the original growth project and re-engineer the operations to protect margins and long-term value. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Charles Carter, the Chief Regional Officer for Americas. Charles has been with us literally for a few months, and he will offer what we call a fresh perspective.
Most importantly, as we went into the flood event on the 12th and 13th of June, which is coming off a weekend production cycle, the teams did a very orderly shutdown. There were absolutely no incidents safety related, both on site and in the surrounding communities. And the teams on site at Stillwater Mine had to do a lot of rescue with local campers who were camping in the weekend in the surrounding national forest. Really excellent work done throughout on orderly closeout, safety, and community engagement. And then what followed immediately in the crisis of the flooding was substantive collaboration across all stakeholders. So not just immediate neighbors to the operations, but the county itself, Stillwater County, had significant damage impact throughout the county. There have been daily engagements with county officials to support not just the interests of our operations, but to support the whole county in its dealing with the flood. And then from county through to state regulators and then through to federal regulators, there's been a very substantive set of engagements. So I think from a stakeholder management perspective, it's been a really good insight into both the robustness, resilience, and the integrity of those engagements. And so we've had multiple meetings as a team with everyone from Governor Greg Gianforte, Governor of Montana, the Senators Tester and Daines, who are in the state Washington Senate, and then representatives in the House, such as Matt Rosendale, and we've even had congressional delegations on site in the last couple of weeks visiting. These have not been meet and greet. These have been substantive dialogues around how to address the impact of the flood in the greater region, the importance of these operations to the state of Montana, and then dealing with infrastructural activities to rehabilitate. And so my overriding first impression is this is a team with great collaboration. It's a team with deep relationships that matter at all levels of stakeholders. And they've come out with flying colors. The flood event itself, you would have seen from our disclosure to the market, East Boulder Mine, not directly impacted by flooding, and similarly the Columbus Met plant not directly impacted. However, both operations did have individual disruptions to employees' homes impacted by flooding. And so in that first week post-flood, both those operations had incremental impact. Stillwater Mine itself very directly impacted. Importantly, not the assets, not the integrity of the assets, be it the operation, be it the plant, and be it the tailings. But you will have seen on that opening visual, the photograph in the introductory slide to this set of presentations, that's Stillwater Mine, and you will see that the Stillwater River runs right through it. And so at the actual mine site, you've got the east portal on the left side, and you've got the rock dump, and so you've got production coming out of the east portal, and then you've got from the west side where you've got the west operations, you've got rock dump material going the other way, and on both you've got men and materials in multiple directions. So that bridge was knocked out. And then importantly, right at the entrance to the operation, which you can see in the photographs on this slide, the whole access road was completely taken out. That is still the case right now, but there's been a workaround, which you can see in the above photograph, where we've gone onto private land, rehabilitated a temporary road, rehabilitated tailings and water piping, so that's allowed us to get back into production. And we've just started production slightly ahead of planned schedule. But the net impact has been a significant one of 7 weeks no production in Stillwater mine, and that, as you know, accounts for around 60% of mine production. It has had an incremental knock-on effect to the recycling at the Columbus Met plant, because the recycling feed is blended with the cons from the two operations, and the operating cons sets the limits on what you can do on the recycling side. So you will have seen a step down in recycling through this period, but importantly, both East Boulder and the Columbus Met plant have really stepped above and beyond what's been happening to try and mitigate as much as possible the loss of Stillwater production. So I think from a resilience perspective and from a team integrity and capability in the face of a crisis perspective, for me, it's been a really good start to understand that level of resilience and capability in the context of a crisis. What you will see in this plan that we're presenting today is it's not just a near-term fix on the pressures that are facing the business. It's really trying to stand up a medium-term focus on all the things that matter to do justice to this world-class ore body. We've got 26 miles of strike on a truly unique geology. I think investors and analysts will have been frustrated historically by the promise and the various underdevelopment or underdelivery over a long period of time, even prior to Sibanye's ownership. And so in this plan, we've really tried to do justice to the longer term optionality of these assets. We're working hard across multiple fronts to get productivity improved, to get costs right, and to make sure we've got a sustainable business going forward. And it's going to take time to get that right, but this is a plan in the medium term that really drives towards the 700,000 ounces of production. And I think we can do better than that over time, but we're not going to overpromise.
The Stillwater mine is back up and running and has been running since the end of July. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on some of these impacts and you know what they mean to each one of our different operations, being the East Boulder mine, the Stillwater West mine, and then the Stillwater East operation, or what has historically been known as the Blitz project. If I move on to East Boulder, I guess one of the key things about East Boulder is that it has historically had reasonably consistent delivery, and I think really at the outset want to highlight, you know, one of the key reasons for that consistent delivery at East Boulder is its developed state. Now, when we talk about developed state at these operations, we're talking about mining blocks having all primary development and secondary development in place to allow for mining of that block. In more recent times, however, there have been other impacts, and more specifically in late 2021 and in the first half of 2022, we've had significant impact, you know, as a result of very high levels of attrition at the East Boulder operations. And again, more specifically, I talk about our miners and our geologists, who are key technical support staff for the mining operations. In fact, at these operations in the last year, we've sort of peaked at attrition rates of around 20% in some of those critical skills. What this means is we end up having less experienced miners and geologists on the face, that have to deal with mining. And as I've highlighted on that section, I can just point it out. If you look at the section on the western side of the East Boulder operations, we are transitioning to more complex geology and more geotechnically challenged ground, and having to move inexperienced miners and geologists in there has a direct impact on our productivities as well as on our grade. And again, just to put it into some context, our miners, by virtue of the fact that they do mechanized mining, they perform all functions of mining. In other words, they do the support, they drill, they blast, they clean. They're extremely productive, and experience plays a huge part in their levels of productivity. The geologists, in turn, make sure that they remain on the ore body. And in the case of having inexperienced people, as I've already highlighted, that does have a direct impact. What we've done to really offset this challenge is we've increased the amount of training that we're doing at both sites. We have between 30 and 40 miner trainees in our training centres. This has been stepped up significantly from historical levels, and then there's also a big focus on training and supervision to ensure that we can get back up to the previously seen production and productivity levels. If I move on to the Stillwater West operations, one of the key things that we've been challenged with at these operations is the level of developed state, where it is less than 6 months. And I guess a couple of factors there. The key one being the fact that the development has been challenging in the two areas that I'm going to highlight now. That's in the depression zone, in that red circle, and then the development through the Stillwater fault, the blue circle on the eastern side of the Stillwater West operations. And really the challenges there have been, the fact that you've got a lot of development that you're doing and it's not yielding any ore body. It's just not improving the developed state. If I move over to the Stillwater East operations, previously known as the Blitz project, the first thing I'd like to say is we do have a developed mine on Stillwater East. The Benbow decline, which was flooded for about an 18-month period, that has actually intersected the 56 level. We do have ventilation infrastructure. We've got ore pass infrastructure, ore handling, waste handling infrastructure. We've got rail. So in essence, a mine has been developed, over the last number of years. What has been disappointing, as Charles has said, is the increase, the levels of increased production. Although I do need to point out that Stillwater East has delivered increased production over the last couple of years, just not necessarily at the rate that we've all anticipated.
When you look at updated guidance for 2022, I think important to note that we've included the stoppage that we had to undergo as a result of the flood. In terms of underground production, from the USPGM operations, production guidance is now about 450,000 ounces at all-in sustaining costs of just over $1,380 per ounce, with capital just over 275 million, which also includes project capital. We are lowering guidance on recycling. We are seeing constraints in the market, and production is forecast at just over 700,000 ounces for the year, and we have got some capital expenditure there of $3 million. You can see the makeup of the change in guidance. Half of that is related to the flood impact, and the balance is related to the issues that Wayne and Charles have discussed. So in conclusion, we believe that this has been and is a transformative, value accretive investment. It has delivered on its strategic intent. Its return on investment has been secured. It's already paid back for itself, and we are now optimizing future value for all the stakeholders. We have a robust de-risk plan with much greater flexibility now having been built in. I think it's a prudent response to a changing environment. That environment, as we've outlined, is elevated inflation, substantial skills shortages, and of course we've taken account of our expected change in the commodity cycles with respect to palladium.